I think the strangest dream I had was, and this is obviously the scary thing sometimes about dreams, they seem so real. I had a son, but my son was me. And it's obviously just so weird where you're in this lucid state, you're in this other world, and you're having this dream that seems so vivid, and you're talking to this person, and this person is you, but also in this dream, it's your son. So I would say that was that was one of those dreams when you wake up, you have to grab a pen and paper.
The conversation was interesting, like you would remember it?
Yeah, the conversation was interesting. There was some life lessons from that. I think it reminded me my childish spirit and to never lose that. And although, as I said, I think I'm at a stage of life and there's seasons in life. I'm in a season that fits me for right now, but I'm also in a season that's very callous. I'm in a season where emotions and internalizing emotions and experiencing them in their entirety is not the number one priority. So, although as I go through life, a lot of the things I experience, usually I put it into my shoulders. I have quite tense shoulders. I put it into my shoulders, and I just swallow that stress. I still, at the end of the day, never want to lose that childlike spirit, and I feel like I've been able to hold on to it.
Iman, you left a private school, and after a lot of investment also from your mother. So this is one of the things you were stubborn to go against your mother. Like you said, a few things. Was it a difficult decision to decide I'm making enough money, enough to pay rent, I think you said, or somewhat, that you say, if I make this amount of money, I'm going to leave the private school in the UK. Anywhere I'm wrong, please correct me. And your mother is so dear to you, so she's pushing for this, at least finish maybe school, and she's put money because it's not public school, and then you say, no, I'm gonna leave. How is that?
Listen, it caused a lot of contention, because obviously, my mom had given up her best years. She'd moved to London. She'd ended up in this marriage, and I think, as I said, talking about values, my mom is under the impression that you don't leave. When you're in a marriage, you stay in a marriage. And then, eventually my stepdad filed for divorce, and, they broke up, and, we were plunged into a lot of financial difficulty. But the one thing she also made sure she did was invest in my education and me as a person. My mom, she had the same clothes for 10 years and nothing was beneath her. So it was very difficult when, all of a sudden, I'm 17 years old and I'm like, Mom, I'm going to drop out of school. And that didn't start at 17, I actually started at 16. I started massaging the idea in. And I think she always knew that that was the path I was going, because, as I said, by the time that I was 11, we had to fend for ourselves. So I told my mom when I was 13, 14, I said, there's absolutely zero chance I go to college. No chance at all. Because I'm not paying for it. You can't pay for it. So, and I'm definitely not going to take on student debt in order to make it happen. So for years and years, that was affirmed in her mind. But I think there's a massive difference between not going to university or college and dropping out of school. And I believe everyone should finish school, by the way. I believe everyone should complete school. I think I have very strong opinions on colleges and universities, and I don't think they act in accordance to people's best interests. But school is school. I think unless you're in a crazy situation like I was, finish school. Now, my situation was, at the point in which I dropped out of school, I was making $15,000 a month. And I'll be honest, I was also supporting my mom at that point. So I guess I kind of had a little bit more leverage to work with and be like, listen, this is working. You know it's working. But it was a difficult period for sure. It wasn't easy.
You think, this idea that you should never have a plan B, because if you have a plan B in your subconscious, you can quit on plan A. Do you think, because it sounds like you only had one plan, it's starting to happen, I'm not going to just stay in school for the sake of staying in school. Who's going to pay college? You're not going to, I have no choice. It's like these footballers who became footballers because they had to leave the conditions they were in. There was no other option. You think that works out better?
I think when you have nothing, you just need a plan A. Because even if plan A doesn't work out, you're back to where you initially were. But I think if you went to university or college and you're making very good money, let's say, I think, everyone, and this is another thing I try to really instill in people, I think for some reason everyone wants to shit on making 80 grand a year these days, but if you're making 80 grand a year and you're 25 or 26, that's a good income. So if you have a high paying job, you are potentially losing out on something. So I don't think that's one of those situations where you burn the boats and you go all in on a business. I don't see why you can't start a business or start your next career step with 2 hours a day and prove to yourself first that you want it. I didn't drop out of school when I signed my first client. I dropped out of school once I was making a substantial amount of money and once I proved to myself that I want this and I can do this. Now, as you go further down the line, much further down the line, you need many plans. You need a plan A, B, C, D, on and on. You need to know that if something changes, because nothing in life is constant, and markets and industries change. That's why I always try to tell people as well, this whole passive income thing is bullshit. Passive income, as a concept, what you're doing is you're buying yourself time. I might put in a lot of work now for 6 months, and that front loads 2 years of success, but eventually that's going to start to decay and crumble. Someone's going to come in and realize the market is brutal, whatever market you're in. So that's really all to say that things change. And because things change, especially further down the line, you need to have ways which you can pivot depending on where the market goes. But when you first start off, I think the real question someone needs to ask themselves is, what do I have to lose? If you're living with your parents, in your mom's basement, you got nothing to lose. Go 100% all in. If you're 36 and you have a family, I think it would be absolutely disgusting for you to drop everything and go all in on one thing that might not work out. Unless you have that conversation with your partner, with your wife, and say, hey, listen, I really want to do this thing, but it might be a rocky road for the next couple years. Are you okay with this? Are you okay to ride through this with me? Or do you think that I'm putting the family at too much risk or too much danger? So I think the main thing people need to ask themselves is, what do I have to lose? And if the answer is something, you need to think about it. If the answer is a lot, you need to really think about it.
What is, Iman, a fear or an insecurity you've struggled with throughout your life?
Not being good enough. But I don't know if that's a bad thing.
Could be both.
I think anyone who achieves great things in their life, they're always asking themselves, is this good enough? And going back to what we were saying at the beginning of the conversation, I think that's why people need to understand the chaos and the mental burden that comes with pushing something to an outstanding level to something that's not normal, that's far, far beyond normal. So I go to bed at every night, and throughout the day I ask myself in all areas of life, am I doing enough? And the answer is never no, but that's the game. And it's an infinite game. It's a game you can keep playing. And that's the fun of the game.
It's true. Everlasting student. What does success mean to you? And this stage of your life, because it could change.
So I was going to say success means living in accordance to the season of your life. So this season of my life is about taking on this burden and taking on this stress. And, the next season of my life could be, and I very much hope it's about family. And your priorities change. So right now I'm like a, bodybuilder that pretty much only trains chest, Yeah, he still trains calves and does this and that, but the main focus is on one area of his life. And the main focus of my life right now, I'll tell you something in full honesty, full transparency. The way that I live right now is not cohesive to being the best partner that I could potentially be, to being the best son I could potentially be. My interpersonal relationships, it's not cohesive to that. Because I have so much burden and so much stress on my shoulders and so many things to manage at any given time, and such a massive organization, as I said, to be the captain of and make sure that our ship is safe and it's going in the right direction, I forget birthdays all the time. I don't call my mom every day. And if you're a good friend or a good son, you do those things, or at least you strive to. Now, that's where I am right now. In 10 years or 5 years, it could be a totally different story. And as you said, there's a tax on everything. My mom lives an incredible life. But I don't think there's many sons, who buy their mom a $4 million house, their dream house, and also call them every single day. There's a tax to this. So I think for the season of my life, there's areas where I'm really missing the mark, where I'm not showing up in the best way that I could be. But that's because I know that I'm going to put this aside for now because I'm focused on this here. And, I don't want to live this same life forever. There will be that next season. I will shed my skin at some point.
But what if, Iman, your mom says, fuck the $4 million house. I want an apartment, but I want my son.
I would tell her, Mother, you're asking me to give up on who I want to be. And you and I both know that that is an unfair ask. And you're right, she would much, much rather, my mom doesn't give a shit. She really doesn't. She doesn't care about all this lavish stuff. The reason I know that is because usually after I buy her the most lavish stuff, we get into the worst arguments.
That's not her love language, obviously.
No, quite clearly. But at least we're aware.
Yeah.
And she knows that, I said I have such a hectic schedule. I do my best. Once a week we have, mother-son time. She would like it to be a lot more. But as I said, she knows that I am living true to what is right for my current life situation. And that molds and that changes over time. So I agree that in some ways in life, you need to be selfless, but in some ways, you also need to be selfish in the sense of, I think when it comes to your morals and your principles and your dreams and your aspiration, no one can take that away from you. I think it would be unfair for someone to take that away from you.
I agree.